Hey sluts, it's been a while. In today's edition of Crap Internet Videos, I want to go a slightly different direction than usual and do some 90s jungle on cassette tapes. I've spent the last few months working on my music, and now I have a whole album. I want to put them onto a tape for some crunchy lo-fi sound, and also to have a physical copy of my stuff. Plus, it's just kinda cool. It sounds pretty shitty as of right now, but being that I made all of this on dumb hardware and old school software, I wanted to keep that vibe going. So, we're going to produce a little demo on my grandfather's old tape deck. I adore the sound cassettes despite their obvious limitations, and I think 90s style jungle in particular is perfect for this medium. As per usual, it proved to be much more of an undertaking than initially imagined. And as I'm writing this now, I have currently not left my house in 4 days. The craziness has set in once again, and I think I need to do something else before I totally lose it once and for all. So, come along for the ride and hopefully you might learn something. I doubt it though. Initially, I had planned to run everything through this amp that my granddad gave me. I figured it would be the best way as it has tape monitoring and inputs and outputs that match up with the tape deck. I previously used this amp for listening to my parents' late 80s and early 90s rave collection, so I knew it sounded great and would make things nice and smooth. As a side note, that tape collection is fucking immense and really quite special. So maybe I could post some of these mixes to my channel. If you are interested, let me know. Anyway, unfortunately, somewhere down the line, 2 of the fuses inside had blown. I wasn't aware of this before starting, but by then I already had the craziness. I wasn't going to let this issue stop me, so I took it apart and checked out the insides. With a little help from my dad, we figured out what fuses we needed and ordered them online. Now, I had hoped that replacing these would be it, and the amp would work again, but in usual fashion, it was not so simple. Once the fuses arrived a couple days later, I popped the top off the amp again, and we replaced the 2 4-amp fuses. Then, we plugged it in, and hey presto, a massive spark. 2 new fuses had blown, so that's fun. At this point, I took to my #1 website, the Internet Archive, in search of a schematic for the amp. I found one, but it was so poorly scanned it was unreadable. I also have pretty limited electrical knowledge, so we both agreed it was best not to attempt anything further. After some more research, I realized that what was most likely going on was a capacitor issue. I did not fancy soldering anything inside of this amp, and neither did my dad. So, I needed a new plan. I found a man on the internet who specializes in repairing old NAD decks and drafted up an email to him. Once that was sent off, I sort of just hoped he would tell me that it was a simple fix, and I was being an idiot. Unfortunately, this was not the case, and this amp is going to need a proper look at. I will definitely get it fixed at some point. But right now, I am unemployed and broke. So, I don't want to spend 175 quid to record an unfinished album. I needed a new plan. I decided instead of using the amp, I would have to get a bit more creative and use this Tascam I had laying around for shooting raves. Normally, I would use this as a microphone, but it has a playback function, a limiter, manual level control, and a nice preamp inside of it. So, I figured I would render out a WAV file, pop it inside the SD, and play that into the tape deck's input instead. It seemed like this was the best way, as my laptop does not have a dedicated line out or in, just one of those combo headphone or microphone inputs. It wasn't ideal, but now I had this idea in my mind, I just couldn't let it go. I'm sure someone will tell me why this was a bad idea, but to be honest, I'm pretty happy with the end result, so I don't care. Next, I needed to check that this damn tape deck worked. Fortunately, it did, but less fortunately, the heads need a really good clean. I also needed to adjust the azimuth and also put in a new belt. This isn't as difficult as it sounds, and to be honest, it only took me an hour or 2, as the alignment was not all that bad already. I would get it done professionally, but as I mentioned earlier, I have no money. Whenever I get round to fully finishing the album, I will do it. So here I am just sort of cleaning the heads up and whatnot. I sped it up because it took ages. But yeah, there are loads of tutorials on how to do this, so I won't go into too much detail. Once all that was done, I wanted to test how well it played now. So I grabbed a brand new cassette I bought at a gig a while back. If you guys know this album, you'll know it's a banger. I popped it into the deck and hit play.
Let me tell you what I think about
Result! It works, and it sounds great. This made me feel really good. I love restoring old tech, and to know I'm keeping something my granddad bought in the late 80s alive and well was a really nice feeling. I sent him a little text to let him know I would play more of the songs, but I don't want to get striked down by the infamous YouTube cunts. Shout out to Algernon Cadwallader, though. That was the best show I have ever been to in my life. I actually cried in there. So then I had to hop into Ableton and set the project file up to go to the Tascam. I checked the details of the deck online, and it suggested the frequency response was between 35 and 16 kHz. So I tried an EQ cutting everything outside of this range, and I also rendered out one with no EQ to test which one sounded nicer. Inside Ableton, I sort of just had a track for each song, with a limiter on there to get a few final decibels out of my tracks, and some individual EQ for songs I thought needed them. I also slapped a U-lean loudness meter on the master, and aimed for 9 LUFS on each song, as this is not intended for streaming, and I think the whole ha-een shit is nonsense anyway. Again, I know someone will tell me what I am doing here is wrong, but again, I also don't give a fuck. It sounds good in person. So I rendered out 2 24-bit WAV files for the Tascam to play back and dropped them into the SD card there. To set this up, I wired up the output of the tape deck to the back of my speakers, which have a headphone jack on too, so I could monitor what I was sending into the deck, and wired the input of the tape deck to the line out on the Tascam. This isn't ideal, as I'm pretty sure the tape deck's monitoring is far from accurate this way. But without the original amp, it was sort of the best I could put together. I had bought a stack of brand new Type 1 Maxell 90 URs on Amazon to record onto, and while I am very much aware this is not the best tape I could be recording to, it cost me a tenner versus the 20 quid I would spend on each tape for anything else. Being that it's a demo for my own purposes, I didn't mind. I'm also an impatient bitch, and Amazon had next day delivery, whereas eBay you really never know. I wanted to do this while I still had that craziness. So I popped the first tape in and began setting the levels on the tape deck. I was aiming for plus 3 dB peaks, as Type 1s can be recorded pretty hot. And from memory, this deck liked being recorded around that level. Once I had got the levels to where I wanted them, I wrote down what settings on the Tascam, what EQ in Ableton, and what level on the deck I had used on the J card, and got to recording. For a better tape, you would really want to do each song individually and get those levels down per song, but because this is a demo and I had each song around the same loudness on the master file, I wasn't too worried about that. For a finished product, however, I would recommend you do that. Once that tape was done, I loaded in the second one and repeated the process. One with the EQ and one without. I also decided that because I had Dolby NR on this system, I would do one with EQ and Dolby, and also one without EQ and Dolby, just to test that out too. But as I had leaned this deck myself, I was pretty aware this was going to be pointless, but it was worth doing in case anyway. Again, writing all of this down on the J cards for later purposes. Once I had all 4 demos recorded, I just had to sit there and decide which one I thought sounded the best. By the end of it, I did feel like a bit of a moron, because the one with no EQ and no Dolby sounded the best, so it was basically all pointless. But, again, it's worth knowing that now. Now I knew which one I like. I just popped it into the deck, sat on the floor, and had a nice little listening session. It was pretty cool hearing it come back through and being like, damn, I made an album, even if it was pretty shit. I will let this play with one of the songs for a little bit here for the vibes, and then after this brief interlude, I'll show you how I got it back to my PC.
I'm sure you're causing all kinds of trouble for lots of different people.
Welcome back. So, as it turns out, Tascams do not have the right line level input to be recorded out of this tape deck. It peaks constantly, even at the lowest levels. So, I'm using my audio interface to record the tape back to my PC. I should have probably used this interface to record into the deck as well, but you live and learn. It sounds fine anyway, so next time I will probably do that, but for now this will do. My main issue is that this interface records inputs in mono. The whole tape was recorded in stereo, so I'm going to have to get a bit creative. I do not have any balanced input, one 4-inch jacks that I can connect the RCA out of the deck to my input with. So I'm using 2 RCA to aux adapters into 2 AUX to 1 4-inch adapters on the interface. It's convoluted, and I'm sure I'm losing some quality or signal here, but it works. Everything is always just about making shit work with what you have, so I'm okay with this. The main issue with this setup is that my Michiel 1 input on the interface has a preamp, and the other instrument input doesn't. So getting these levels right was a fucking nightmare. I decided to use Audacity instead of Ableton because in my view it handles stereo separation much better than Ableton, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Big up the open source gang, kind of, because Audacity sold out, but that's another discussion itself. Anyway, once I had the 2 right and left channels balanced nicely, which took me a very long time, I rewound the tape and started to record it into Audacity. At this point, I just wanted to hear what I had made finally, because we were hitting day 4 of non-stop cassette insanity. So when the recording finished and I had my final audio file, I was very relieved to say the least. Once the recording was done, I checked all the levels one more time and rendered the file out to go back to Ableton one more time. I must have fucked up somewhere down the line because the bass was way too high on the recording, but whatever, I had the recording now, so I EQ'd it down a little in Ableton and slapped another limiter on it to get the final digital file up to scratch for streaming platforms. Once all that was done, I had another final little listen to the album, and that was it. I was done. It was a pretty fun time and very satisfying to have the end product in both my hands and unlisted for myself on YouTube. Now I guess I just need to actually finish the album and do this all over again. I love the sound of cassette tapes, and even though a lot of people are gonna be like, why the fuck did you do this? To me it just matches the vibes. Everything on this tape was made with 16 or 8-bit samples, in Pro Tracker and Fast Tracker and, don't tell anyone, Renoise. So to me, it just glues it all together nicely. I'm going to be a cunt now and tell you that if you want to hear this demo, you can, but I'm putting it on Patreon. Not because I want money or anything, but because I just don't want to release it to the public. This way, if you are genuinely interested, you can have a listen, but it won't leak my whole shit out there. I mean, not that it really matters, nobody will listen to it anyway, but I hope you get my point. Either way, the finished product will be out there for free, and I will make a set of tapes for anyone who wants a physical copy. I hope you enjoyed this little video. I had a lot of fun making it. I always do, it's just that these projects take me a long time, and I don't want to upload crap to my channel just to maintain some arbitrary schedule. Quality, not quantity, I guess. Anyway, that's all from me. I will be back again soon. Thank you for watching my shitty videos. It really does mean a lot to me. And I am really loving building a weird little corner on the internet for this kind of stuff to live. I love all of you, and peace out, bitches.